This episode is brought to you by the Redline Report by Brandjitsu. What story is your website telling and how is it telling it? Are you just talking about yourself or are you connecting with your customers on a more meaningful level? Find out at brandjitsu.com/redline. If you feel so inclined, you can support the show by like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcast. Also, you can go to patreon.com/rebelrebelpod. The Rebel Rebel is a show dedicated to creative rebels and entrepreneurs all over the world. It's for those people who think audaciously and act courageously in service of making the world a better and more interesting place.
75% of all employees within an organization believe they have an idea to move the business forward. You want an 80-20 ratio within your organization. You want 80% to be your functional, and then you want your 20% to be your innovators, entrepreneurs, your vital employees.
RJ dives deep into his transition from entrepreneurship to corporate America and back into entrepreneurship. Along the way, he found new insights into intrapreneurship and its impact on corporate culture. Please welcome RJ Grimshaw to the Rebel Rebel podcast. Across the world, at least 3 times, if not 4, all the way in Ann Arbor, Michigan, I've got RJ Grimshaw. RJ, how are you?
I'm doing great, Michael. How are you today?
I'm so good. It is one of those days where you wake up and I don't know, I've got the energy, I've got the bounce in my step.
It's interesting you say that because this morning I woke up by 4 a.m., same thing. I was ready to get up and I knew that if I got up at that point, though, I'd be exhausted by right now because my fuel tank only gives me so many hours to run on as you drink your coffee or tea probably.
It's tea. It's sleepy time tea.
It's sleepy time tea. But you 3 hours behind me, it's a little bit different. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's something in the air. But as I was saying earlier, we had an absolutely gorgeous day for March 3rd or March 4th yesterday in Ann Arbor. It was 71 degrees, which is a new record, which is unheard of. So, but we'll take it. So I think that's what probably got me in the mood this morning to get up and take on another day like yesterday.
Right on. Oh yeah, let's do it. So why don't you catch us up here, RJ? Let's start here, and if you could tell us what you're up to now. Like, what does RJ's world look like professionally, and then we'll zip back in time and figure out how we got here.
So I'm in a very interesting place right now. I'm just coming out of corporate America. Previous to that, for the last 10 years, I was CEO president for Unified Equipment Finance, which was a long-established equipment finance company. So what we did is we helped businesses across the country finance the equipment that they need for their business.
Right.
It could either make them more efficient or grow revenue. You think about any type of asset. It could be from backhoes to bulldozers to FedEx trucks across the country, tow trucks.
Wow.
However, in the middle of last year, as I was approaching my 10-year anniversary, typically every company, specifically in the banking industry, they go through an annual review of succession planning, what the future looks like, your 1, 3, 5 growth plans.
Yeah.
And we grew the company, I should say the team grew the company from 13 million to 120 million of top line revenue in that timeline.
Holy cow.
So amazing growth, amazing team. However, we were in a place now where we wanted to go to maintain. And I'm not a maintain guy. I'm a growth guy. And I knew I would either go stir crazy, drive a lot of people crazy, or the combination of both, where I'm driving people crazy on top of going crazy myself. So the bank president and I and the board, we came to an agreement that the business was in a good place, great management team. And quite honestly, again, it was I would be overcompensated just to be a maintenance guy. So I ventured out on my own, long story short.
Nice.
Able Leadership is the name of our boutique firm.
Yep.
Primarily what I'm doing today currently is working with other equipment leasing finance companies in our industry, in our country, which is $1 trillion business that most people aren't aware of.
No clue.
Because it truly is a specialty within the financial world. So now I'm working on that, but I also have a passion project about entrepreneurship. I learned of this term in 2003, and quite honestly, the way I've learned of the term is after I worked for myself from 23 to 30, fell into corporate America because of an event in my life, and then 3 years after being in corporate America, I read a book by Tom Peters called Reimagine, who had entrepreneurship as a term, and I immediately identified as that. Huh. And for your audience, the definition of an intrapreneur, don't confuse it with an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
An intrapreneur is a person that thinks just like an entrepreneur. However, it's in the confines of a larger organization. So think of it as a business, a business within a business. And as soon as I identified as that, it really helped propel my career. Where from that time, within 10 years, I went up through the ranks, moved around corporate America, and became the CEO president for Unify.
Wow.
And that's what I did for the last 10 years.
Holy cow. So how does intrapreneurship shape up for you right now?
Well,
Being out on your own.
it's really educating other businesses and other people primarily on the advantages of utilizing this type of operating. I call it an operating system.
Yeah.
Everyone's heard of EOS, scalability, things of that nature, and they're incredible systems. And I'm not trying to play off of them. However, a lot of times we forget the human element within the organization, and I don't even call, a lot of times you'll hear people call their team or staff of assets. They're not assets. These people are human beings. They want to have their voice be heard. They want to work in an environment that their voice is heard. However, as a business owner or a corporate leader, you have to foster that environment.
Right.
And it is not just an initiative. You just don't say one day, okay, we want more feedback. There's a process to that, a systemized process that we use at Unify. Now I'm working with other companies to deploy that type of operating system and culture. A crazy stat, Deloitte just did a survey, and 75% of all employees within an organization, 75% of all employees within an organization believe they have an idea to move the business forward.
Wow.
However, we don't provide them the avenue to be able to share those ideas. And again, it's not very difficult to do, but there is a systematic process to doing that.
All that untapped potential.
And that's what we tapped into at Unify. And Michael, the other thing though, we coach business owners to, you don't want, we decipher your entrepreneurs as your vital team members, your vital employees. Your non-entrepreneurs are your functional. They show up every day. They're core to the business. They can follow processes. They can follow systems. However, that's all they're going to do.
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And that's probably just what they love doing.
That's what they love doing. That's what they're good at.
Yeah.
So what we do is we coach to, you want an 80-20 ratio within your organization. You want 80% to be your functional, and then you want your 20% to be your innovators, entrepreneurs, your vital employees.
Wow.
However, what we have found is when you set up the operating system, the iOS Entrepreneur Operating System,
Love that.
You'll start seeing that 80% actually goes down to 70% and 60%, and your vital goes up. Because it's an avenue now. People are hearing their voices heard. And we also have a software system where they're able to put in their ideas, have them reviewed by management, where completes the loop of communication. And now all of a sudden what happens is you see discretionary effort pick up. And what I mean by that is that we throw away job descriptions. You have your core job description.
Yeah.
But when we would hire at Unify, typically the last line I would say to a candidate before I left the room, if we were going to move forward with the person, is a year from now, if your job description is the same as it is today, two things have happened. One, we haven't provided you the atmosphere or culture for you to become who you want to be and play to your strengths and your superpowers, or you didn't take advantage of that culture. It's one of the two.
Wow.
So we teed them up to walk right in with already thinking about, and those folks we wanted fresh ideas from, because think about this, we're in the jar every day and we can't see the label.
Right.
You bring someone in, it's sort of like your house if you're getting ready to sell it. The realtor comes in and says, you got to paint that, you have to fix this, fix it. Well, we've been looking at it for the last 5 years, but we're not sensitive to it because we see it every single day.
Holy Hannah. Okay, a couple things to unpack here. Number one is I would, up here we say can't see the forest for the trees. That is the first time I've seen can't see the label because you're in the jar or whatever, however you put it. It's so great. I love it. But I would like to go back in time and try to unpack how RJ came to this. And I know it's a team effort and all the rest of it, but I mean, it does get driven through the organization. And did it happen? Was there somebody in your life that inspired you to be this way and to think about things differently? Like, what does that look like for you early days?
Yeah. So we go back in time. As I mentioned earlier, when I turned 30 is when I learned or when I turned 30, I went into corporate America.
Yeah.
From the age of 23 to 30, I owned a bar restaurant. I was fortunate enough and blessed enough to be born into a family of entrepreneurs. My dad's business plan hangs behind me from 1983. That was cursive, handwritten in pencil.
Yeah.
Three parts, him and himself and two partners, and it outlines the whole business. They took this plan from concept to a $50 million revenue company. My grandmother owned a florist, very successful florist. My grandfather on the other side owned a soda distributorship. So for the natural progression for a Grimshaw was you'd own your own business, right? It wasn't sure what it was going to be. And my business was at the ripe age of 23. My dad was crazy enough to finance a bar restaurant for my brother and I.
Wow.
So he bought the property and then, of course, leased it to my brother and I. He was also our bank, our funding source for that. And he allowed us, he did not enable us to have him do all the work. We went up and set up the LLC. We had to work with the insurance company. And this is before the internet where you could just log on and have 5 proposals sent. You had to go see someone in person and talk to them and introduce yourself to them and explain what your vision was. Same thing with beer distributors. And I think back now, at the age I'm at 54, what was New York State thinking about issuing a 23-year-old a liquor license? I don't even know it's possible nowadays.
Yeah.
However, as I learned my MBA in running a business, in hiring my first people, and having my first person that we let go come back for unemployment, and learning everything that your audience goes through on a daily basis. Unfortunately, on February 2nd of 1999, my dad at the age of 61 passed away from a massive heart attack.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But he prepared me for where I was at that age of 30. So I'm 30 years old. I'm already married 10 years. I already have one son that's 4 years old, another son coming on the way that is due in March, and he passed away in February. So I had to sit down with my wife and have a real heart-to-heart conversation of, yes, this entrepreneur thing is great. We're successful. However, I'm scared because I've lost my mentor and my security blanket. And I think the best thing for me to do is go out and use what I've learned here in corporate America.
Wow.
And lo and behold, I fell into equipment financing. And what it did for me is it offered me an opportunity to keep my entrepreneur fire in my belly, because guess who I was working with? I was working with other entrepreneurs.
Sure, yeah, they're building their own business and need
They're
your help.
building their own businesses. So I could walk in, relate with them automatically. I wasn't another rep.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about bragging about where RJ came from, but they could just tell just by the talk track. You know, you can tell when you meet someone and have a conversation with, okay, they get it or they don't get it.
Yeah.
But really in 2003, when I learned of that term, and I actually wrote a paper on Tom Peters and the term entrepreneurship, that's when I really went all in on that term and I saw my career take off. And I was being presented opportunities that the imposter syndrome kicked in. Why me? What makes me special?
Yeah.
And a situation in 2004 took place where I was at the time working for Key Bank. They came to me and asked me to run a business banking team. Now, keep in mind, Michael, I never worked for a bank. I never sold a deposit account. I worked inside of a bank in the equipment finance group, but never on the banking side.
Yeah.
And the district president said, we want you to throw your hat in. I said, okay, at that point, you have to listen, right?
Yeah.
I throw my hat in. I interview. I tell my current boss I'm interviewing. The other thing is I knew he wasn't going anywhere. And I always said, I want to be in leadership. And he was a younger guy. Lo and behold, I get the job presented to me and offered to me. So now I'm in banking. Ran my first team, successful, great people. And then another opportunity came along. And I did this with 3 companies. It wasn't like where I was job hopping. I looked at the opportunities within the organization to identify where I could add the most value. And that's what an entrepreneur does.
And I was going to say, like, one of the things that pops into my head when you're telling me this story is, you know, the imposter syndrome, of course, is a thing. But if you hadn't done that before, why would they come to you to run this thing that you've never done before? What is it that they saw, and what can we learn from that?
Yeah, and it's really about the attributes of an entrepreneur. It's resourceful. I never said, well, we don't have, the assets to do that, or I don't have the budget to. I figured it out. I would figure out how to get things done, just like a business owner does.
Yeah.
And life learner. An entrepreneur is a life learner. I'm always learning, just like yourself. Every single day, I'm trying to consume information to make a better version of myself. That and just passion for life. I was upbeat, attitude, it all plays into your personality. And then the other key thing is your background, your upbringing, the context of your family, and how you arrived and how you show up. People knew my backstory, and I brought a different sense to banking and a viewpoint than your traditional banker had. And I understand risk management. I understand that,
Sure.
you can't. The only way we stay in business is by making good loans, or we're out of business. And so many people don't realize that.
Yeah.
But I think also the main reason, Michael, is I enjoyed working with business owners, and I just found that as my calling. If I was engaging and working with a business owner every single day, or a bunch of them, I was in my happy zone.
Oh, and therein lies the trajectory.
And during the time, Michael, I didn't think anything about it. It's now as I'm reflecting back, as you reflect, I just thought it was normal. I just said, you know what? Yeah, I'm lucky. I'm in the right spot at the right time.
Yeah.
And I'll go back and share something, and it really speaks volume to mindset, an abundant mindset. And anyone that's listening to this podcast or watching, if you're successful and you're in corporate America, your phone is ringing all the time from executive recruiters with different opportunities, right? And pitching you different opportunities. If you have a good brand in whatever market you're in,
Yeah.
you're being recruited typically. I'll never forget this. I was out on the West Coast. It was December of 2012. And I happened to receive two phone calls, and that's typically when in our industry, the executive recruiters start putting the press on, because they know people's years are ending.
Yeah.
Their bonuses are going to be paid out in Q1.
Yeah.
So if you are going to make a change, that's the time that you start considering it, because also you'll get your new comp plan for the following year. So when I received the phone call, or both phone calls, the second one, for some reason, Michael, I said to him, the only thing I'd be interested in is a CEO or president's type role. I have no idea what made me say that. I think it was, he just caught me at the right time.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I said, Larry, the only thing I'm interested in is a CEO president. I'm happy where I'm at. Company was loyal to me during the downturn in 2008 to 2012 at that time.
Yeah.
Gainfully employed. Well, Michael, in January of 2013, I had two different CEO president opportunities presented to me. And this was one of them for Unify.
Isn't that something?
And in the meantime, I also went down the process of talking to another company, not through a recruiter, through another company, that I ultimately turned the job down. And it was for a lot of money. And I remember saying to my wife, I go, I don't know why I'm turning this down, but my intuition is telling me to. Huh. And I ended up here. And I speak about that now, between logic and intuition when it comes to innovation, right? There's a combination, and you have to have a little bit more of your intuition than you do in your logic, because logic is just looking backwards at trends.
Yeah.
Intuition is taking the backwards and also looking forward to forward trends.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great topic to dive into, because innovation is a scary thing, because it's an unknown.
I speak to innovation. This is an amazing stat that I share. If you look at Google Trends or Google search words, innovator over the last 5 years was searched 18,839 times, just in the States. Okay. 18,839 times. However, innovator, 722 times. So everyone's looking for innovation, but they're missing the key component, the people who drive innovation, and that's your entrepreneurs and your innovators. So that's what we educate companies on. How do you deploy this type of culture within your organization?
Wow. Have you had any pushback from companies?
Tremendous pushback.
Okay.
Tremendous pushback, because it's not for everyone. And when I personally talk to a business owner that seeks more information, it's a year commitment. Again, because to be successful, there's stages, there's 90-day sprints that we go through to help the company, that we did at Unify. And it's very similar to exercising or going to the gym. You
Yeah.
can't go to the gym one time or two times or three times, walk out and say, man, I am the most buff person in the world now.
Yeah, it
It's
doesn't
a
work.
process, and it takes time, and it takes dedication and commitment and consistency. That's the same thing with this program. Because what I don't want to do is have one roll this out, and it starts with leadership. And that's usually where the pushback is, because how many times do we run into someone that says, we've always done it like this? Why?
Yeah.
Things are good.
Yeah.
And I should say Blockbuster, Sears, I can quote, I go on and on and on. And I say, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just giving you examples of people that said things were great. We have no competition.
Right. Right. And then you look at, on the flip side, Netflix.
You look at Netflix, exactly. And Blockbuster had an opportunity to buy Netflix for a dime, and they passed it. However, even if you're not looking just to innovate from a product set,
Yeah.
this culture provides engagement from your team members, because now their voice is being heard, and you're going to see incremental increases and improvements in your processes and systems on a daily basis
Wow.
without coaching people. It's just naturally going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, that's so inspiring, RJ. Like, it's really, I applaud you for it, because I think it's one of those the missing pieces in a lot of ways.
It is, but the challenge is to answer your question again. The immune system of a corporate environment is very difficult to change,
Yeah.
and bigger the organization, the more difficult it is to pivot and change. So we try and identify different verticals within the organization. And a lot of times we'll start with the HR department, because they're trying to figure out how to increase engagement. There's so many different statistics that come out about employee engagement right now, which none of them are good. None of them are good.
Yeah.
Okay. And as well as we really saw this during 21 and 22, during the shortage of good, talented employees, or they were jumping.
Yeah.
We didn't lose that. We lost one person at Unify. And quite honestly, it was a position that was better for her, for this individual
Yeah.
to take. Because again, when people's voices are heard within the organization, and we call it co-missioning, they're co-missioning with the leadership team. They
Yeah.
feel they're vested.
Yeah.
They're not going to leave for more money. They're not going to leave because they think it's greener, the grass is a tad greener. They might leave if there's a family issue, or they're moving or relocating, or if an opportunity presents itself that's going to further their career.
Sure.
But just to go lateral, they're not leaving.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing too. We beta tested an A and B for our job descriptions or job postings. One, we just used our normal job description. The other one, we added one bullet point, which was entrepreneur mindset. We saw the caliber of the candidates for the B with that word, or two words, entrepreneur mindset, on the job description go up tremendously. And what it did is also provided diversification of our candidates, because people were maybe coming from different industries, but they knew they could take their talent and leverage it in our industry.
Wow. So cool. Damn. Okay. Isn't that something? Why do you think more people aren't doing this?
One, lack of it's really education, and everybody wants instant gratification. Back to my example, 18,839 searches for innovation. But it's like diet. People plug in diet into Google, diet. They don't,
Right.
What do I need to do specifically to lose 10 pounds or improve my health?
Yeah.
It starts with people. And we actually have two assessments. So if we're working with a business, say I come across a business owner and say, oh, we have a great culture, we're an innovation culture, I'll say, great. I have a free assessment that we can send out to all your employees, that I'll receive back the automation, and it's going to do one of two things. It's going to validate what you believe. So it's validation to what your gut's telling you.
Yep.
Or it's going to show you what's really going on and areas for improvement. And if it is as good as you say it is, we can take that data now and pour fuel on the areas that are doing really well to go to the next level. And I'll also say that I'm not trying to sell my services for.
Right.
That's you. And quite honestly, I might use you now as a best practice or a case to show, because you have this type of of operating system.
Oh, that's far out,
Yeah.
RJ. That's so cool. Oh,
But primarily, it's you have two things have happened typically in a business when they seek our services. One, they're having, again, a lot of employee turnover. It
yeah,
starts there a lot of times. The second thing is they've hit a point where their revenues are just stagnant or they're going backwards.
sure.
So the owner or the leader of the business is saying we have to do something, and they start looking at different avenues. And again, EOS is a great platform. I promote it. Scalability, whatever there is, get on something
Yeah.
that your whole management team is talking with rhythm and consistency.
How this may be a right out of left field, but how important is brand to this story?
Pardon me?
How important is brand?
I would say important, but I don't know how to define that.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's
Like I guess what I'm asking is that is the company culture part of the brand experience? Like
yes, it
is
has
this
to be.
yeah,
It's all culture, and it starts at the top. And if I a lot of so that the reason that we coach individuals, and I'm building out a DIY course for individuals,
yeah,
Michael, is two reasons. One, they've learned the topic or they've identified. So say if I'm speaking at a conference and then all of a sudden someone identifies it as an entrepreneur, I tell them you to be happy and to have the success that you want and to be able to impact the company that you're working for, you have to be aligned with their mission, values, and vision.
yeah,
And if you're not, you're going to get frustrated.
right.
So go seek a company and I seek that type of organization at Unify
Yeah,
that I knew I would be aligned with. I knew that I would be aligned with my boss. I knew I'd be aligned with the culture and what they stand for. High performing company, cares about community, cares about, their team members. So as soon as you can find that alignment, then go blossom.
yeah,
Go to where you're wanted. And it starts with leadership. And again, if the leadership's not going to convey this type of a culture within the organization and you are an entrepreneur, here's the other thing we coach them to add that you have an entrepreneur mindset on your LinkedIn or on your resume
uh,
and walk in talking, be proud. And that's what we try to be proud that you're an entrepreneur and what makes you different with studies of what you've done before. We had an individual at Unify that came in. I had a blind spot to this early on in 2014. We're growing the balance sheet, earning assets, so we're receiving payments from our customers. Well, we didn't have an online portal to take customer payments. Well, in the digital age, that's a big miss. That's
yeah.
not customer centric like we said we were. Our tagline is obsessed with your success. However, we're going to make you mail us a check. So he came to me, and he was a true entrepreneur through and through, and said validated with the idea, with context, why we needed to do it.
Yeah,
We did not have budget to do it. We did not have a resource to do it. However, I said, if you'd like to run with this project, it would make a tremendous difference in our organization. Well, Michael, in 90 days, he influenced our IT department to put this on the roadmap for them.
yeah.
He influenced our third party provider to set it up. And in 90 days, it was set up and it was going. And today, we process over $100,000 a month through that portal.
Holy Christmas.
Was not on his job description, was not a requirement, but he identified it because he understood the business, he understood the systems and procedures, and most important, he was customer centric.
Right.
He understood and focused on our customers. So if I go full circle back to the 75% of employees that have great ideas,
Yeah.
that's why they have the ideas. It's not going to come from a boardroom. It's not going to come from a corner office. It's going to come from the people who are engaged on a daily basis in the trenches, taking care of your customers.
Wow. That's very well said.
Yeah.
Love it. Let me pivot on you a little bit here, RJ. What is something that you do just for RJ?
That's a great question. Enjoying my boys. They're young men now. I
Yeah.
mean, but anything to do with them. That's really where my joy comes from. My mom, she's 81. Same thing with her. Anytime I can spend with my mom. Especially losing my dad. my mom was 55 when my dad passed at 61, and it's amazing. That generation, you married who you dated, and
Yeah.
she had no desire to get married again, and I'm the oldest of four boys, so I've kind of been her, um, you know, person to just be by her side and be there for her.
Oh,
But really,
that's
that's
lovely.
it. I love business. I love coaching. I love CNBC. I just love the art of professional development too. That's the other thing. I'm in two different masterminds because the only way that I can
Uh,
make people better is by pouring into myself, in turn pouring into them. So really, that's golf, pickleball's the other two main hobbies of my wife. But she beats me, so it's you have to. I married a good athlete, so
that's awesome. As you should,
yeah.
as you should. I had a friend. So this friend of mine, he's older than I am, and I go to the gym every day. And I've got my Apple Watch, and I'm closing my rings, and I'm doing the stuff. And him and I decide to have a competitions because he's got an Apple Watch. Dude, RJ, he kicked my ass because he played pickleball, and the amount of calories he burned in 45 minutes and the steps he took, like I was blown away.
And he never even realized he was working out. That's why I love pickleball, because you're it's strategy, it's thinking, it's
Yeah.
competing, it's social, it's a fun sport to
And
exercise with.
you're moving, and I have not played it yet, and but it's on my list, but I'm just
It's
like
addictive.
I'm blown
Michael,
away.
be ready. It's addicting. We're headed to a wedding to Memphis on Thursday, and we have friends coming from New York. And lo and behold, we text them, "Hey, you bringing your rackets?"
No.
They're bringing their rackets, and
So
we're going to play when we're down in Memphis. So I mean, it's just one of those sports that anyone can play. You
yeah.
don't have to be a super. I've been beaten by many times. You look at somebody's like, "Oh, this is going to be easy." I get my butt kicked. So it's a great sport.
That's great. I love it. And
Yeah.
a growing sport too. Holy Christmas. That's like insane how fast it's taken off.
Leaps and bounds. It's unbelievable, and I don't see it slowing down
Yeah.
anytime soon.
Well, I know that not to make this a pickleball episode at all, but like they're converting tennis courts now to pickleball courts.
So
My
we did that at our club, and you really upset the tennis players. The tennis players are really taking it on the chin right now
Yeah.
because of the integrity of their game. But what's amazing, and I said this to my wife Sunday evening, we play in a Sunday evening league, is just the diversification of the demographics with pickleball.
Yeah.
You have everything from old to young
Yeah.
to different nationality. It's a sport that everyone enjoys,
Yeah. And they
and you
can,
don't see that with many sports.
yeah. And everybody can play against each other, like
Exactly.
older people against younger people, and they're both having a blast.
Both having a blast,
Yeah.
and so that's why well, that's why I know the success and the growth is driving, because anyone and everyone can play it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Good for you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm stoked. You've inspired me to maybe look a little closer into this, and maybe I'll kick my friend's butt.
Just be ready to commit. Learning the scoring is the hardest thing, Michael. That's the hard. It really is.
Really?
And think about it, then I always joke, you're losing oxygen when you're playing,
Yeah.
which you can't remember things. So now you're trying to remember the score, and you see four people, if we're playing above 50, looking at each other like, what's the score? We need like a little ball thing to keep track of the score so we don't forget.
Oh,
And
funny.
it's competitive. It's fun. You just be ready. When you play it, you're going to be addicted to it.
All right. Man. All right. Okay. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put it on the list, and we're gonna get it done. That's
All
great.
right.
Okay. Let me take you again. Let me zig and zag a little bit. Imagine, if you will, you're walking down South Main Street, Ann Arbor. I don't know if you can picture that.
There is.
I hear it's a lovely,
It's beautiful.
bit of road, and you're thinking to yourself as you're walking, "Oh man, I wish the world knew this one thing." What is the one thing, RJ, that you wish the world knew?
This is easy. I wish that the world understood the value that an entrepreneur brings every single business. The entrepreneur are the doers. The entrepreneurs are the visionaries. You need both of them for success.
Wow. Okay, you're right. That was easy. Amazing. Are you? What's your favorite food? Just another non sequitur for you.
Steak. Love a good steak with a martini or a red glass of wine.
Okay, lovely. I was gonna say favorite cut of steak.
I love a filet.
Okay.
Filet with blue cheese on top. Night
Oh,
Steakhouse in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's my favorite place. If you're in Ann Arbor, that's the place to go to. Just medium rare, blue cheese, baked potato. It's all fresh meat, never frozen, and it's just a good steak.
love it. You did mention a couple of books, uh, some Peter's some Peter's titles.
Hmm.
What's on your bookshelf? What's your go-to?
Right now, Double Double by Cameron Harold. I really leveraged that book quite a bit when we were growing Unify. EOS Traction. It's on my bookshelf. Um, uh, Extreme Ownership, Jocko, another wonderful book. E-Myth. I believe
Mm,
that every single entrepreneur or even business leader should read the E-Myth.
really?
I,
And why is that?
the simple principle of working on the business is not in the business. So many times entrepreneurs believe that we're superheroes or leaders, and I've been guilty of that, and we can't do anything. That's why you want to surround yourself with entrepreneurs that can help you take things off your plate so you can leverage your superpower and not be caught up in the day-to-day activities.
Wow. Yeah, that's well said. Do you like music?
I'm not really a big music guy. No, it's
Okay.
one thing my wife and I we met at 17. We're high school sweethearts, and we've always commented that we're not big music people or concert goers. She's
Oh,
a big Billy Joel fan. We've seen Billy Joel twice. Other than that,
eh, if you're gonna see two concerts in your life, Billy Joel twice would be the ones I would recommend. I've
and
seen.
we saw him at Camden Yards with my brother in Baltimore for his first show ever at Camden Yards. So that was pretty cool to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. That's one of my favorite concerts of all time I've ever seen. It was Billy Joel. Like it was, he's a showman for sure.
Well, if he plays, I've already promised my wife if he plays the Sphere out in Vegas, we will be there. So I just think it'd be an unbelievable show with him,
Oh yeah.
in that atmosphere. Actually, anyone in that atmosphere, I think would be an amazing show. So
Yeah, no kidding. What's your favorite? I'm gonna this two-parter. What's your favorite part of America? It could be physical or existential.
yeah, um, I love Texas.
Okay.
I really do, and it's not political driven. It's more so. We spent 3 years in Houston, and my boys learned Southern manners at a perfect age. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. You never get off an elevator before all the females are off the elevator. You never go through a door before a female. You hold the door open. Just those little things,
Mm,
and people are just friendly. They're just I came from the Northeast and bigger city. Spent a lot of time in New York City calling on people. It's just a different world. I'm not saying it's bad.
yeah.
It's just different. Where in the South or in Texas predominantly, it's just a different pace of life and again, I go back to just how people they treat each other with respect.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. Have you? So part two is: have you traveled outside of the U.S. and if so, do you have a favorite spot?
I've only traveled once, and it was this past August. My wife and I and my two boys went to Italy for 10 days.
Oh, which
My,
part?
we started in Lake Como,
Oh,
uh,
very
and
nice.
then we went to Milan. Um, uh, where did we? Milan. What's the city with the all the water?
Venice.
Venice. Jeez, how can I forget Venice?
That's a,
Venice, and then we went down and spent almost 4 days in Rome.
oh
And
wow.
what we were there to do, Michael, which is really cool, is my youngest son plays collegiate hockey, uh, and it was a tour for his hockey team with all the parents and boosters.
Oh, very cool.
So we went into Sweden. He played 2 games in Sweden. We
Wow.
went into northern Italy, where the Olympics are being held being held this summer. Is it this summer or next year?
Wow, I don't
But
even
just
know.
saw everything in Italy. Have you been? You've been there?
Yeah, I've been to Italy once.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was the longest. That was the most time I've ever taken off was that 2 weeks? I've never
Wow.
taken 2 weeks off. And I took off, and my team knew, he's not going to be there's no emails. We're going to handle everything.
Yeah.
And when I originally scheduled, I thought, yeah, I'm going to want to get back right away. Well, let me tell you something. After 2 weeks, I'm like, man, it'd be kind of cool to go to Greece for a week now. What do you think? Am I wrong or
No,
right?
you're bang on. And the one thing, I don't know whether you had this experience in Italy. Northern Italy is different than mid or southern Italy, but you're in Rome. But what I loved the most about it was you'd start eating at around 9-ish. And food would drift out, and you'd talk, and then you'd have some wine, and then there'd be more food, and then there'd be some more wine, and before you know it, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and nobody's in a hurry. Everybody's and I love that. Just the connection, the food, the unhurried atmosphere, and the fact that I was not very good at Italians, like speaking Italian, but when I did try, they genuinely appreciated the effort, which is different than some places in the world.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And that was one of the most things we enjoyed, is just going to, and people, just sitting and people watching. And I remember doing that with my grandparents. They're French Canadian, and they called it the French Ballet. When you would people watch, you sit on Main Street with an ice cream on a Sunday night and watch people walk by. So my wife and I was joking with her. I said, yeah, we're just at the Italian Ballet. We're just sitting here drinking our Spitzer and watching people walk by, and you have nowhere to go. You just relax. It just your heartbeat goes down.
Yeah,
you're engaged with the world. It's magical.
Yeah, Mediterranean diet. Yeah. I'm sure I would live an extra 20 years if I moved. And my partner Jennifer is like, she really wants to move to Greece. and I've never been to Greece, but I do have it on my list of like Corfu, like one of the smaller islands, something like that would be
magical.
It would be, yeah,
absolutely magical.
This has been so much fun, RJ, and I mean, I don't want it to end, but I do need to ask this question. And you've given the entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship answer, which I really love and appreciate. And I now have a newfound love for entrepreneurship now that I know what it is. But there are these people, and maybe it's the 70, it's the 80%, right? That you're shifting. But what advice would you give to that 80%, or the rebels in waiting, or these people that aren't sure what to do next? How would you help them get there?
I would say if you are contemplating of leaving your job to go start something, becoming that entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I always highly recommend identify the organization that does what you want to do, and go apply there, work there. You might find that you're better served to be the entrepreneur before risking your capital doing what you believe is going to make you happy.
Interesting.
Now, when I say that, some people will say, well, geez, is that really ethical? You're going to a company and you're going to steal their ideas and then go start on your own. It's all in context. That's not the intent. The intent is to go there, be the best employee you can be, add value and impact that organization, and then make a decision if you want to go do it on your own before you have to start writing checks of your own capital. And remember, the ROI for RJ during my career, I never had to make a monetary investment in any of my companies. However, I reaped the rewards of my efforts over that time.
Wow. This has been deep and meaningful for me, RJ. I really appreciate this. Thank you so much for your time and your generosity. This has been a time well spent.
I've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it. You're a great host, by the way. Your questioning and engagement and level of thought. It's refreshing to have this type of conversation. So thank you.
Thanks, RJ. I've been your host, Michael Dargy, and this has been the Rebel Podcast. It's a podcast for creative rebels and entrepreneurs all over the world. And hey, if you're a rebel or you know a rebel, why don't you head on over to therebelrebelpodcast.com and fill out our guest request form. We'll get back to you within 24 hours, and maybe we can share your story with the world. Don't forget to like, share, or subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And thanks so much for listening. Until next time.